Hey, I'm Dan from Bicycle Junction. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the different cargo bike types. There are four main groups that we break our cargo bikes into, and they're differentiated by how much they can carry and sort of the style of construction, if you like. The categories that we sell here are utility bikes, midtails, longtails and front loaders. So let's start with utility bikes. Utility bikes are an e-bike with all the regular things that you would expect from a transport bicycle, such as a rear rack, mud guards and lights, but they also have a frame-mounted front rack. So usually both the frame-mounted front rack and the rear rack will be rated for a heavier load than is usual on a standard e-bike. So they're intended for carrying stuff, be it kids or groceries or all the things that you need to carry day to day if you're trying to do without a car or a second car living in an urban environment. The real important thing about the frame-mounted front rack is that all of the load that you're putting on the front is transferred through the frame. Instead of a traditional front rack, which would usually be mounted to the forks, when you have a big load attached to the forks, it can really affect your steering, it can make the front wheel flop from side to side, and it can make it a really unstable ride. So for safety, having that frame-mounted front rack gives you a really great stability. Firstly, it spreads the load that you're carrying front to rear, so that you're not carrying everything on the back, and it makes sure that that front load is not affecting your steering. So you can carry quite a bit on these bikes. Usually people who are interested in utility bikes can be young people who don't want to invest in a car but still have a lot of stuff that they need to carry, more than they would be able to carry on an ordinary e-bike. And also young families with a young child who want to put a child on the back and a child seat, but still have room for putting a creche bag or a school bag or that kind of thing on the front. So they're really great for young families and child carrying as a first step into cargo bikes. There's a couple of main models of utility bike that we sell. Ones that I can think of are from Linus bikes, such as the Linus Ember or the Linus Felix, and also more utilitarian, small 20-inch wheel models such as the Turn HSD or the Turn Vectron. All of these options have that great load carrying ability but really ride like an ordinary bike. So even on the days where you don't have to carry a big load, you don't feel like you have to ride a great big cargo bike. So that's really the benefit of utility bikes. The next category of cargo bike is midtail cargo bikes. Now midtails are still very much like an ordinary bike, but they have an extra long rear rack. So they're a step up from the utility bikes. They can always carry a child on the back without being in a child seat. So a child beyond the years of 6, and oftentimes can also carry one adult on the back. The bikes that we have in this category are the Benno Boost and the recent multi-chargers. Both ride very much like an ordinary bike, but have a very powerful motor and a rear rack rating of around 60 kilos, whereas utility bikes are often only up to about 30 kilos. The next category of cargo bikes is probably our most popular category, which is longtail cargo bikes. These are characterized by being very similar to midtails, but as the name explains, they have a much longer rear rack and they can carry up to 2 or 3 kids on the back. The ones that we carry, the Uber Spicy Curry and the Turn GSD, are fitted with Bosch's most powerful motor, the Bosch Cargo Line motor, and they generally also have a lower rear deck. This is a really important difference in that because they can carry bigger loads and often can carry up to 100 kilos on the back, if that weight loading was up high above an ordinary size rear wheel, that can be quite difficult to balance. So keeping that centre of balance down quite low, down just above a 20-inch rear wheel, allows even big loads to be very manageable. This is really the biggest benefit to the longtail cargo bikes. They can carry big loads, but they're also really easy to manage with those big loads. For this reason, sometimes people look at midtails and think they'll be a good idea and more manageable because they're shorter. But when people try these full-size cargo bikes, it's not about how the bike rides without a load, it's about how it rides with a full load. And oftentimes it will lean in favour of these full-size longtails exactly for that reason. We have longtails such as the Yuba Spicy Curry and the Tern GSD, and they have a full range of accessories so that you can either carry your kids in kids seats or just sitting on the back on cushions holding onto bars, or with monkey bar or clubhouse frames that provide a rail for your kids to hold onto. They all have the frame mounted front racks as well for carrying all the gear, and usually some pannier sets that can be added to the rear as well. The final category of cargo bikes is our front loader range of bikes. So front loaders are characterised by having a big box in front of the handlebars and behind the front wheel. So usually the steering is on a linkage, either cable or rod steering to the front wheel. The beauty of front loaders is that you can just pile everything in. You don't need to strap things on. Kids don't need to hold on to handlebars. They can just sit in their seats, have their Y belts on. They can have their hands free in the front. Front loaders do ride a little bit differently to other cargo bike categories that we've talked about. Having that wheel so far out the front can sometimes be a bit daunting to people initially, and I think that's why longtails for many years have been the most popular for people adopting in New Zealand, because it's more familiar. When people test ride a front loader for the first time, we see that they'll pedal off and it'll take about 3 or 4 seconds of a little bit of wobbles, and then you'll just see that spark of, yep, I got it, I understand it, and they're away. And so it really is just that initial hurdle to give it a go and see how it is, and you very quickly realise that it is quite a beautiful ride with the front loaders. That long wheelbase gives a nice, stable ride at speed, and the low centre of balance of the box, keeping your load weight, free load down, means even bigger loads don't really affect the handling. So they're very stable with big loads. Two of our most popular models of front loader are the Bullet from Larry vs. Harry, which is a very sporty cargo bike. Still has all the ability to carry children, but it's also just a very lightweight cargo bike that rides fast and is fitted with a Shimano motor. And then probably the king of the cargo bikes we sell is the Miller Load 75. This can be spec'd in any number of ways, but the key thing about it is having the full suspension. The full suspension is not just about comfort for the rider, but incredible comfort for the passengers. Kids, even on rough ground, just sit very comfortably, not bouncing up and down, and things stay put when you put them in the box. If you pair that up with other features that you can add to the Load 75, like either an Enviolo internal gear hub or a roll-off internal gear hub, dual battery system, high speed up to 45 kilometers per hour, you really have got an incredible vehicle that entirely replaces a second car or even a primary car. So that's a little rundown of the different categories of cargo bike that we have. Different families have different needs, and it's great to have a look at all the different options. Sometimes we'll have customers who come in and have an idea that they need a longtail but maybe only need a midtail, or vice versa. So when you do come in, have a talk to us. We'll ask you questions about how you're going to use the bike, and try a variety of bikes, and you'll come away from it with a really clear idea of what kind of bike is right for you. Once you've narrowed that down, of course, you can also book in for an extended test ride so that you can try these bikes in your life and really see which ones work the best for you. So thanks for listening. That's a little bit about cargo bikes. Check out our other stories online, and we'll see you again soon.